I want to talk today about tribute bands, all right? Now, tribute bands are a huge, huge thing, right? And I think at this point in time, it really is a young man's game, all right? You've got a lot of people out there doing, whether it's Journey or Van Halen or, any number of things. Van Halen seems to be a very popular one. You have Sammy Hagar out there kind of doing his thing currently, but you don't have David Lee Roth out on the road. That era of Van Halen, I think, appeals to a lot of people. There is a very good Van Halen tribute act called Jump. And the singer is great because he does all the jumps, jumps off the drum riser, and he's very acrobatic and really works the stage. And, here's the thing, man. The reason why these groups are so popular is because they're taking a formula that works, right? They're taking a formula that works and they're running with it, right? And here's the deal, whether you're young or you're old, this can appeal to a lot of people. Now, on the one hand, Jump is these guys are all young, right? These guys are probably, I'm just guessing late 20s, right? And they're taking this formula, these great songs that work in an arena, this great show that is a huge spectacle, right? When you recreate what Van Halen did in their prime, you're creating a huge spectacle that, frankly, blows away anything that's out now. Any of these shows that they put out now, they pale in comparison to what Van Halen did. I'm just talking about, putting on what I would call a WWF, World Wrestling Federation style show with a rock band. If you think about Van Halen, right, and you think about the outfits that David Lee Roth wore, you could say that, Ric Flair could have put on the same clothes as David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth could have put Ric Flair's outfits on and gone out on stage. And certainly you listen to Running with the Devil, you hear David Lee Roth going, woo, you hear him doing that over and over again on the outro. It's definitely that jump off the top rope vibe. That's something that works. People love a huge spectacle, but none of the bands that are out now, none of the original bands are putting on that kind of show. Now, when The Darkness came out, this is now, what have they been, 15, 20 years they've been out? When that band came out, in the jumpsuits and the singer was kind of jumping around and their music, had guitar solos and all that, I was like, okay, this is sort of a resurgence of what Van Halen did, right? But, it wasn't quite on that level. It didn't quite blow up in the same way. But tribute acts taking a formula, and even if it's the Journey formula of amazing, powerful songs, a soaring high tenor voice, the guitar wizardry of Neil Schon and the rest of the guys in the band, whether it was Steve Smith or, the guys they have in the band currently, that is a formula. It's a formula that works. And here's the deal. These bands, these tribute bands are able to get prime bookings. They're able to sell tickets because they're using this formula. It's an interesting thing. Now, look, we've all played in cover bands, right? And Van Halen was initially a cover band, right? You could say that these tribute acts are cover bands, but they're really not. The difference is this. Van Halen covered The Who. Van Halen they covered the Beatles. They covered David Bowie. They covered ZZ Top. They covered all of these bands, Cream. They covered all of that stuff. But they ultimately did it in their own way, right? Van Halen never sounded exactly like the bands that they covered. And there are some cover bands that do try to sound exactly like the record. And then there's other bands that bring in their own arrangements, make the songs their own, and play them that way. Now, a cover band, right, can go on to write pop songs or write rock songs and transition, like Van Halen did, transition into becoming an act, right? Becoming an artist, right? We've talked about that before on the channel, the difference between a musician and an artist. Well, there's also a difference between a cover band or a tribute band and an artist, right? An artist will come up with their own paintings. If you're talking about painting, there are people that copy original paintings and maybe do it by hand. And there are prints, right? There are prints where they just print out a copy of a painting. But here's the deal. There's a big difference between all of these things, right? I don't know if a tribute act will ever be able to transition into an artist. You know, I see that jump band and I go, wow, these guys are really putting on a big spectacle. The singer's got the vibe. He's jumping around. And here's the thing, man. These guys are doing it without having the luxury of being a headlining arena act back in the day. When you were a headlining arena act back in the day, Van Halen had many members of a road crew. They had multiple semis. They had professional sound engineers and monitor engineers and guitar techs and all of these things. The tribute act is largely probably traveling with, I'm just guessing, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 crew members, right? Probably just 2. And they are traveling, with all their gear in one trailer, right? They may be taking a tour bus, or they may be all piled in a van. We're talking about not having the same level of comfort. These guys are out there putting on this huge spectacle of a show. And I have no doubt that they're doing pretty well. They're able to sell a lot of tickets, but like I heard the numbers, Jump played down here in Florida. They had never been down to Florida before. And Florida is a great market for this. Great market for a Van Halen tribute act. A lot of people will go to see that. And they went and they played, I believe, Jacksonville, when Jacksonville had snow, or somewhere up north in Florida when they had snow. And even with the snow and the city unable to handle the snow and all of that, they were able to sell 400 tickets, right? 400 out of, I think, 550. So that's good, but think about that. 400 tickets. Now, I have no idea what a ticket costs to go see a tribute act. I can't imagine it being anywhere near the price of going to see an arena act. But can this arena act, can this club act, can this tribute act go on to headline arenas? Man, I would think maybe it's possible. Look, maybe one day you could take all of the greatest tribute acts out there, put 4 of them, maybe 5 of them on a bill, and take them on a stadium run, take them on a arena run. It's possible. It's possible. Could you command the same prices that you could for, say, a Van Halen arena tour or a Metallica tour or something like that? And Metallica is another one. I'm sure there are Metallica tribute acts out there. Metallica is still out there on the scene, so people could go see a Metallica show. I don't know how that affects the value of a tribute act. And I don't know if you know in the comments who are the highest paid tribute acts and what is the most profitable band to be a tribute act of. Let me know in the comments. Or if you're in a tribute act, let me know. You know, I was told when I was coming down to Florida that basically Florida was duo and single gigs, meaning you'd be strumming an acoustic, you know, in some little beach side bar and grill or whatever, and maybe you'd have a partner, but there weren't as many band gigs, and then tribute acts were huge down here. All right. I don't frequent the bar scene, so I don't know. If you are in a tribute act or you play in Florida, let me know in the comments. But it's an interesting thing, man. Think about being these guys, the Jump guys, and I'm coming back to them because I've been watching them. They've been on my radar for a while. And they're younger guys, right? And, you know, they're younger guys that could be trying to be artists, right? They could be writing their own hard rock stuff and trying to get that. And maybe if those guys tune in, maybe you need to write some original music in the Van Halen-esque style. Maybe doing that, you could transition into being artists. It's just something to think about, because Van Halen was a cover band playing in bowling alleys and dive bars and the whiskey and Gazaris and all of these different things, but largely playing other people's music. And I think ultimately, if you're going to be taken seriously, transitioning into playing your own music would be the way to go, even if it's just a single. Look, Sammy Hagar just put out a tribute that he says he wrote in a dream to with Edward Van Halen, right? So you think about it that way. You think, well, Sammy's doing tributes, right? Sammy's doing a tribute to Van Halen. These guys are out there carrying the torch, and I absolutely salute it. They say they have haters and all that. Look, I'll be honest, when I see a tribute act, I can hear the difference between the real thing and the tribute act. Nobody really, is like an amazing tribute act that just is exactly like the band. There's always going to be variances. There's always going to be differences. Everybody plays different. Everybody has a different voice. You're not going to find an exact David Lee Roth clone even in 1987. I know, because I tried to find one. So it would be super interesting to see if a band like that could transition into becoming an artist and taking it to the next level.